What is up, Space Pirates? This is your captain, the certifiably suave Dr. Disaster, and the mainstream media shills are doing their absolute best to try to make it look like things are going well for Dragon Age the Veilguard. TheGamer.com just put out this piece trying to claim that sales are already really strong for this turd.
He's full of shit!
Look at this paragraph here. They buried this part deep into the article, but right down here it says, if you head on over to the top sellers list on Steam and ignore all the games that have already been released, then Dragon Age is the third highest ordered game. Yeah, well, in that same world where we just ignore inconvenient facts, Unknown 9 Awakening is actually the top seller on Steam right now. Did you know that? Yeah, if you ignore the other 1,622 games ahead of it, then it's number one.
That doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't make sense. And I'll tell you what, I think the clowns at BioWare are in panic mode here because the thing isn't probably selling very well. And the first of the sneak peeks of the game has come out, and the review is not good at all. YouTuber Neon Knight echoes exactly what we have been saying about this game all along, that the Veilguard is a hollow shell of what Dragon Age used to be. His scathing review is exactly the last thing BioWare wanted to see. Alright, me hearties, make sure you like this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and also, don't forget to follow me on Twitter, where I keep a list of woke and DEI infected games pinned to the account at all times for your reference. My handle over there is Dr. Disaster 1. But anyhow, Dragon Age is coming out in about a week or so now, and BioWare really needs some good word of mouth to get this ball rolling, because in reality, the game is not number 3 on the top seller list of Steam. It is 27. It finally managed to break past number 30, considering that this is a major franchise from a big-time AAA studio, and we are a week away from release. This is not very good. Granted, this game will sell a lot of copies. There are a lot of consumers out there who will auto-purchase this game. People who have been convinced that if they don't buy it, then they're bad people. Or maybe they're people who love the franchise no matter what and just can't help themselves. They have to buy it. But Dragon Age will likely end up a major disappointment nonetheless. Anyhow, let's look at this review from Neon Knight and hear what he has to say.
So, with Dragon Age the Veilguard, there have been a lot of attempts, in my opinion, to convince the general public that this game is something that it really isn't, to convince you to reject the evidence of your eyes and ears, what you've been seeing in trailers and previews, and believe that the Dragon Age DNA in Veilguard, specifically its gameplay, is anything more than a very thin coat of paint. And as someone who played the game for about 7 hours a few weeks ago, well, I guess my thesis statement here is that it isn't. A thin coat of paint is more or less exactly what Veilguard has to offer longtime fans. And any serious, level-headed discussion about this game is completely hampered by what seems to be an almost universal refusal to just say that out loud.
Yeah, that's exactly what we have been saying in these spaces ever since we saw the first trailer for this game. We've been saying that it looks like an unserious version of Dragon Age, where instead of dark fantasy, we are left with something that looks cartoonish and bright colored, and just a different tone, a weak tone.
Now, for really quick context on how I had the chance to play Dragon Age the Veilguard, EA were nice enough to invite me to check it out, which I did very much appreciate. I'm a big-time Dragon Age fan, and if you look at the other games I cover and tend to love on this channel, it sure fits right in, but I left the Veilguard recording event with a small pit in my stomach because I knew that the honest way I would describe this game would be about the last thing most Dragon Age fans would want to hear. Now, I don't say that from a I had a terrible time and the game has no redeeming qualities perspective, but instead from, well, you know what? Here's a good way to put it. My prediction is that there are going to be two games that Veilguard will constantly be compared to, one in terms of gameplay and the other for tone. On the gameplay side of things, well, if you haven't been able to tell by just, using your eyeballs, Veilguard's combat and exploration is full-blown, or at least 85% blown, God of War 2018 worship. This new Dragon Age is all about the action, building up a rage meter to release an ultimate, getting your perfect parries in, shield throws, talismans that activate special abilities, plenty of pots to break and chests to open, you get it. Point is, somebody really liked God of War 2018 and said, why don't we just do that and be done with it?
Now, I gotta say, I like God of War titles, but I'm not really happy to think that somewhere out there, someone is gonna pick up the Veilguard thinking they're getting a Dragon Age game, and instead, they're gonna be presented with a God of War styled game. There's no good reason for this other than the fact that the people who made this game didn't make it for Dragon Age fans, they made it for themselves. But let's hear the rest of this guy's comparisons.
Now, that's not all there is to say about combat, don't worry, we still need to get to where that thin coat of paint even comes into play, but the other comparison I think people will constantly make, this time in terms of the game's tone, is to that Guardians of the Galaxy game from a few years ago, and this is the point of the video where some of you recoil in horror and maybe projectile vomit, but it's also the point where at least some of you are probably thinking, hey, those are two not bad at all games, you could do much worse in terms of comparisons, and yeah, if you're thinking that, I completely agree. In fact, I'd go as far as to say God of War 2018 is a great game, I loved it. However, the reason I even bring those two games up, and the comparisons to Veilguard I'm sure are going to be out there, is this. Imagine if 6 months ago, we don't have to go very far back, only before that initial reveal trailer, but imagine if 6 months ago you, or even better, some imaginary person, let's say, had gone to the Dragon Age community on Twitter, Reddit, wherever, and said that what you wanted out of the upcoming Dragon Age, which at that point had only been teased, was God of War, action above all else, hack away at your enemy's combat, combined with a story matching the tone of the Guardians of the Galaxy game. Now, I don't care what kind of Dragon Age fan you are, whether you're an Origins-only type of person, or you started with Inquisition, or maybe you're like me and find things to enjoy in all three games, whatever the case may be, there is no denying that the Dragon Age fanbase of just 6 months ago would have torn that imaginary person apart for merely suggesting such a thing. Yet ultimately, that's the type of game BioWare have made here.
So great, we get combat and gameplay that is absolutely nothing like Dragon Age as we are used to it, and we get a tone that is similar to something that you'd expect to see from the MCU. He goes on to say that the game has a lot of quips in it, and that just doesn't fit at all with the tone that you would expect from a dark fantasy world. It isn't compatible with what we've gotten from Dragon Age before, but I will say this, it is completely compatible with that original reveal trailer that we got this past summer where they had that campy remake of the old David Bowie song playing in the background, and they made it look like it would be a heist movie. Everyone described what they were seeing as a Fortnite heist game because the color palette and art style looked like it belonged to a Fortnite game. It was just completely off. It looked weak and out of place when compared to original Dragon Age stuff, and that is just what we've been saying all along. The team that made this are using Dragon Age as a skin suit in order to push the game that they actually wanted to make, and I think people are largely going to see through this, and the sales will end up as a big disappointment considering how much time and money BioWare put into it. But I'm going to leave it there. Drop your mockery of Dragon Age and BioWare into the comment section below, and we will talk there.
Thanks for watching, me hearties. If you haven't already, your captain is inviting you to subscribe to the channel and become a part of the crew. Life as a space pirate may not be glamorous, but there's always plenty of booty.